Welcome back to the Midnight Gospel, where we fall asleep to stories slower than time itself. Somewhere outside the gates before the crowd, a disciple wakes. There's a faint crackle from the fire, and the pale blue dark is just beginning to turn. You can hear it in the slow hush of sandals brushed aside. Someone sits. Their robe gathers the chill, shoulders pulled gently in like a small animal curled close to warmth. The coals are not bright enough to see by, just enough to feel. In that trembling, golden way evening dust still drifts through memory. No one says much, the city is holding its breath. There's a temple and men inside, but out here, time thickens and waits. He folds his hands, not to pray, not yet, just to feel the skin, rough from carrying water jars, the scent of smoke in every crease, and waits. A pot simmers unattended, soup, lentils maybe. Somewhere a dog lifts its head and sighs, a small tired thing giving in to sleep. A woman murmurs, but only in half words. She's tending the fire or dreaming where she stands. Her hair glows at the edges, fire-lit gold on copper. The disciple doesn't see her, not really, just the shape of someone who will share the silence. He asked for nothing and still felt full. The gates are quiet tonight. No one cares what time it is. Someone might be praying nearby or watching the moon, but out here, waiting is just waiting. You may close your eyes now or leave them half open. There is nothing to do and nowhere better to be. You don't need to stay awake for the story, it will stay awake for you. I woke up slow, before the world expected anything. Some small part of me waited for a voice or for a reason to hurry, but nothing came. Just the pale hush before morning, before people opened their doors, and before the streets held any footprints but last night's. I sat for a while on the edge of my mat. The floor was cool against my feet. I traced a line in the dust with my toe. That's how it always began. One line, curved and aimless. Someone would sweep it away soon enough. Sunlight hadn't split the sky yet, but there was a wavering shape by the courtyard wall. The jar was waiting, the one that's always heavier by memory than in my hand. I rubbed my eyes. My knuckles touched the side of my mouth, a half-remembered prayer. I don't always notice the prayers. I think most of them drift away before anyone can hear them. But I feel better when something leaves me, even if just a sigh. My neighbor's cockerel started, low and stubborn. I put on my sandals, surprised at how quiet it all felt. The world didn't ask for much. When I picked up my jar, it was still dry and hollow, but just holding it, just holding something empty, was enough to steady me. The kitchen was cold. I skimmed my fingers across the table. There was last night's bread, cut and crumbed. The cloth had slipped in the dark, so I pulled it back over. If there was dew on the lintel, I didn't check it. Beyond my doorway. I saw a grayness I know well, a sky with sleep still caught beneath its rim. Across the square, someone tugged a goat away from a patch of wild thyme, the tangle of legs gentle and bored. I waited for them to pass. If I'm quiet in the morning, the day is gentle, too. I shifted the jar, pressing its cool ridges into my palm. Sometimes I wonder how many times I've walked this path, or if the dirt remembers me at all. My left sandal scraped, snagged by a stone I'd never seen. No one watched. Even the birds took their time. Let this moment stretch. I walked out toward the well. It wasn't far. There's a piece of stone at the lip, my favorite place to pause, just long enough to feel the world spin gentle without me. I leaned there, watching a stranger's fire, orange in the thin morning, not bright, just steady. I couldn't see their face, not really. They were turning bread in the embers, lost in their own warmth. Sometimes you have to ask for permission with your eyes. I didn't. I just watched the way the flames listened. Even this silence is holy. Water in the jar always sounded different at this hour, round and shy, almost secret. I lowered the rope slow on purpose. The bucket kissed the surface with a quiet I liked. I filled my jar, no hurry, no weight in my mind but the water the stranger at the fire scooted over. I felt the invitation but stayed near the stone. The heat shimmered, pressed against my face and hands. I didn't need to talk, just stood a while in the hush. He broke a piece of bread and set it on a rock between us. He asked for nothing and still felt full. I waited for the day to tell me what to do. A woman in a red headscarf brushed past, her arms full of wood. She nodded, half aware, her feet dusty from the long road. A dog coughed near the corner, then lay down, lumped in the soft dirt. The fire crackled, but it didn't say much. Let this moment stretch. Someone else came to the well, younger, humming under her breath. She lowered her bucket, the rope squealing just once. I wondered what she thought about while waiting for water. Maybe nothing at all. The night listens with you. My hands curled around the jar. I felt the shape of every groove, every imperfection. I liked the weight. I let the day grow slow inside me. People think mornings are about beginnings, but most mornings are just carrying things, empty and then heavy, from one place to another. Distant voices rolled out from the city. A seller with figs, another bringing onions in a basket, nothing urgent, just shapes in the air. My feet pressed the dirt. I breathed, letting the smoke, the bread, the hush of the well settle over me. If I closed my eyes, I could almost hear yesterday breathing too. I reached for the bread, still warm, still quiet. We shared it without looking up, without names. A bite was enough, soft, faintly sweet. The fire's warmth made the dawn less lonely. I wondered if he felt it, too. Even this silence is holy. I thought about going home. The water was full, the jar sweating against my sleeve. There would be chores to sweep, to fold, to wait for one more sunrise. But it didn't matter right now. I could stand by a stranger's fire and listen to morning settle into itself. The pigeons rustled behind me on the roof, their slow feet tracing the day's first lines. No one noticed the prayer, but it was heard. Sometimes before the buckets, before the hurry, before anyone expects you to be useful, you can just be. There's room for nothing special. There's warmth for anyone who comes near. Even the water tastes brighter before the city fully wakes, before the names and needs return. You can let this moment stretch as long as you like. The world will wait. Let sleep find you gently here, by the fire, beside the bread, with the jar at your feet, just waiting for morning to open up, slow as a blessing. Before the sun lifts its head over the hills, the stones are still cold beneath me. I settle slow at the edge of morning. Market begins before anyone calls it market. It lives in early footsteps and in the crease where light folds into shadow. A woman in a faded shawl lays out handfuls of almonds in 3 quiet rows. One falls and rolls to my side. She doesn't notice. I watch it rest. There's no hurry, only the slow-breathed routine of arrival. Some men fold linen onto a wooden barrow, smoothing out the corners, making creases vanish with the flat of their palms. They murmur about weather, but their words barely rise. Nothing asks me to move. I set my heel against the damp earth. Listen to the hush. A boy carries a clutch of small onions in his apron. He peeks between the first cracks of market canvas, counting, always counting. No one awaits him. He puts the onions into a basket beside fig leaves and stands back, surveying the way morning fits around these small arrangements. Pomegranates appear, always the last to arrive. Someone polishes a blemish with the end of their sleeve, holds it to the light, sets it beside the bread with a nod. Each trader has a way of entering. The woman who presses her cheek to her donkey in greeting, the ancient man who arranges thyme and mint by color, not purpose, the market seating itself. A pot of water is nudged closer to a charcoal flame. Its lip darkens, begins to steam. I watch hands. They shape cups, pass bread, ruffle a neighbor's sleeve in a gesture so small it could be missed by anyone awake enough to care. Farther off, a little group stands around the fire. They draw their palms above the coals, turning them over every so often, quiet as a secret nearing its edge. First coins slip from palm to palm, no clatter, only the hush of honesty. A bent woman's laughter finds my ear, gentle as cloth. It shivers past, vanishing quick. No one chases it. I wonder sometimes how many mornings thread themselves together like this, how often the world is made in repetition, unremarkable things, so careful, so patient, you can hear your own heart slow to match them. Someone brushes aside a pebble with their heel. Two boys pass a jug and take turns swallowing. Another stalls, staring at his hands as if waiting for memory. Nothing breaks. Every question waits its hour here. The air is still cool. I tuck my hands into my sleeves, palms remembering last night's warmth. Sooty smoke finds my nose. The nearest brazier is barely 5 paces from my stone. Its orange glow softer than the sky. No one speaks of anything important. That's why the market sits so gently. No need to prove itself. It's only the promise of what always will be. Figs in summer, bread at dawn, coins traded for lentils, the world turning in its slow grace. Let this moment stretch. The sandals are curious, all different. Some patched with flax, sandals of the young men wide apart, never still. Older feet, careful and close. Each pair tells a story, but never aloud. They let the dust speak. Someone writes a mark in the dirt with their toe. Not a message, just fidgeting, maybe an old habit. I watch it fade as another foot passes by, the sign erased almost before it began. The linen-clad merchant cradles his morning in both hands. Bread disappears into waiting cloth, given without tally. Even his silence is fair trading. Even this silence is holy. I think of sleep, but the day keeps spinning. Here nothing is urgent. A woman hums a stray tune as she counts apricots, her breath making the air seem safer. Men shift their weight, not in impatience, but in rhythm, as if waiting for the next slow thing. Beyond all this, the fire continues. There, at its border, 3 figures share its warmth, not their stories. Smoke rises in clean lines. Someone kneels, fingers outstretched to meet the comfort of heat. Let the day continue, even as your eyes close. The market seats itself again and again, long after I stop watching. I am full enough just being near to it all. The night listens with you, the courtyard breathed quietly, as if the evening itself had dozed off just behind the old stone well. Shadows curled on the ground, folding over each other. Lanterns hadn't yet been lit. It was the kind of light where you could almost forget time, just the hush before dusk, when nothing rushes and every movement belongs to something gentle. A handful of us stayed behind, not because we were needed exactly, but because empty spaces felt heavier after sunset. My hands found the linen, cool and wide, left in a rough heap by the bench. Someone had been mending it earlier, stitches neat, the thread nearly matching. I picked up the cloth and smoothed it over my knee. My thumb circled a patch where the weave had thinned from too much washing. Like everything else, it would last a little while longer if we were gentle now. Across the stones, a friend. His name not important, our companionship softer than words, was turning over flatbread on a clay plate. He hummed tunelessly, as if his heart had found its own slow rhythm and was unwilling to move any faster. Between us, there was no need to speak. We had come to trust the quiet, let the evening air fill the space where old anxiety might have fit. Folding another garment, I matched corners as I'd seen my mother do by lamplight. Thumb to thumb, edge to edge. The linen listened in a way. It kept the day's warmth, the brief smell of new bread, the sound of sandals scraping on the doorstep. Every movement felt almost invisible. No one noticed the folding, the patient smoothing. But somehow, these were the movements that held the house together. Let this moment stretch, even if nothing happens, especially if nothing happens. The night listens with you. There was a time when I thought love had to announce itself. Candles, gifts, a word or a story told at just the right time. But this, laying one garment atop another, smoothing a crease, tucking in a stray thread, felt like a language quieter than even the wind that slipped beneath the doorway. He asked for nothing and still felt full. A basket of socks, half darned, sat to my left. The rhythm unfolded, pick up, fold, set down, breathe. My hands remembered each movement as if care were something old and patient handed down from someone lost to memory. Tonight, I folded not just for myself, but for someone else, someone who would drape this cloth across their shoulders in some uncertain morning. Even the scent of it, sun and soap and time, had its own kind of promise. My friend, finished with his bread, settled beside the steps. He tore the flat rounds and left half atop a napkin. I joined him, wordless, and our chewing was the only sound. Sometimes hunger comes softly, a small reminder that there are things bigger than worry. Sometimes companionship is silent and nobody questions it. Even this silence is holy. After a while, he stretched his hands over his knees, eyes still on the fading sky. One star, then another. I gathered the folded garments, stacking them into loose piles, nothing heavy, nothing perfect, just cloth shaped by quiet hands offered back to the world a little cleaner, a little neater than before. We laughed, not out loud, but in the way two people can share the joke of having survived another day's ordinary trials together. The burnt stew, a cracked nail, the neighbor's rooster who crowed at the wrong time. The village beyond the gates rustled safely in the background, strangers, yet not. Lanterns bobbed far off, nearly lost among shadows. I pressed my palm to the soft weight of the folded cloth. That, too, could be a prayer, unspoken. Let the night carry the worries. Let your shoulders soften, as if someone dear had brushed the burdens free. Sometimes all the world needs is a slow, careful folding. John once tended a fire at the gate, quiet, a watcher, warming his hands as shadows moved behind him. He never called out to those in the courtyard, only kept his eyes low, his presence steady. There's a ministry in staying, in seeing, in holding space for something to pass through. I think of him sometimes as I smooth another tunic, imagining his gentle patience mirrored in the way I tuck in an edge. There's a comfort in this rhythm, the slow work of care, the smallest stewardship, like folding the days into themselves. Breath by breath, cloth by cloth, nothing remarkable but everything necessary. Let this stillness linger. Let your eyelids grow heavy, like cool linen drawn down across the chest. The Lord is near, even in boredom, even in silence. The dishes wait in the basin. The sun leaves only a thumbprint on the wall. Somewhere, beyond where our circle of lantern light will reach, tomorrow has already begun its quiet return. I run my palm over the stack, feeling for splinters in the old wood of the bench. If I find one, I pluck it out with a little sigh. Another job to do, another small bit of healing. We say good night if we say anything at all. Dust lingers suspended in the last blue light. No one is hurrying. That is its own kind of blessing. Let your breath slow. Let your hands rest. It is good to care for each other, even when the world is quiet, even when sleep is near and no one is watching. God walks softly in the hush where garments fold, where hearts wait in gentle rhythm, where two friends finish their bread and leave the crumbs for birds that will come with the dawn, and so the night continues as soft and slow as linen waiting to be folded, as sacred as hands moving in silence, letting holiness rest beside you until the world returns in its own time. It was a day for walking, not far, not to get anywhere, just circling the edge of town, where the stones make uneven paths and goats wander without purpose. Feet find their way over earth worn smooth by other feet, some long gone, most nameless. Only the dust remembers. In the hush of morning, before the sun claims its heat, I left the house with no reason behind me, a bowl half filled with lentils, a jug, sweating early dew. No one stopped me. No one ever does. These outskirts hold no errands. Sometimes I think the world must get tired of meaning so much here. Things hardly mean anything at all. The alley where someone dropped a scrap of blue cloth, the shadow of a shuttered window, a stone small enough to fit in my palm, but I do not pick it up. I am neither thief nor child, just passing by, empty-handed. Let this moment stretch. There is a warmth to doing nothing, not the sinful kind, but the rest of those the world forgets to keep busy. I saw a man at the well, but he did not nod. We are both walking, each into our own hush. Leaves drift, swept by breeze, making nothing of themselves. Birds pick at the dirt, never pausing to look up. I wandered near the gate that never closes, its wood swollen from last week's rain, groaning softly. Gates are meant for keeping things in or out, but this one just hangs open, as if even the city prefers to breathe, unguarded. A bundle of figs fallen from a cart, no one rushed to gather them. I stood, I noticed, then walked on. Just this, nothing given, nothing taken. The alleys here are thin and winding. They hold their breath. On one step, someone left a bit of bread, half-eaten, soft from night air. I could have reached for it, but I was not hungry, not today. Even this silence is holy. There is an old wall where names were scratched, now faded. Sometimes, if I press my ear close, I imagine I can hear every hand that ever touched it, some joyful, some afraid. I do not write my name. I leave no mark. Let the wall do the memory keeping. A woman called to her children from a doorway. Her voice was a thin thread, and the children came slowly, sullen, their sandals slapping the stones. I watched them slip by, a memory before it finished forming. It is easy, in hours like this, to believe nothing ever changes. The alley bends in the same way, the shadows wear the same shape, but a fig is new each day, even if it falls and is forgotten. I walk and the world walks, and we share the same air for a while. Let this quiet linger. Past the baker's doorway I paused. The smell of yesterday's bread hovers, still warm, still soft. I don't step inside. We all find comfort in what remains after hunger. The baker does not see me. No one notices these pauses, these aimless turnings. Only the sky watches, blue and endless. A stray dog waits by a shutter, long tail stirring dust. He looks at me but does not move. We have learned the same patience, waiting without hope, without hurry. There is a kind of prayer in walking without wanting. Even now, I recall the old men who sit at the edge of the market, wrapped in their own silence. They nod at nothing, gaze at nothing, stillness thick as oil. Once I thought they were wise. Now I think they are simply here. I see the smoke from cooking fires, thin, blue, slow to rise. Somewhere supper waits, but not for me. I walk on. In one narrow walk I found a broken jug, its handle still attached. Rainwater tangled with dust inside. A cup for no one's thirst. Things break and remain. They do not ask to be whole again. Let the quiet come closer. I pass a door where voices hum, gentle, hidden, not for my ears. The cool air from a shaded lintel. I pause, not to listen, but to rest, breathing out the weight of belonging nowhere in particular. Somewhere behind the house a rooster complains. Someone laughs softly. I keep my steps slow. I do not look inside. In the farthest alley the stones are smaller, worn hollow by many years and many feet. Here the evening is felt before it is seen. My shadow lengthens and I follow it, a companion who does not need answers. Let yourself drift. Some say the outer walls are lonely, but they hold a kindness. Nothing pressing in, nothing pressing out. Even the air is lazier here. A small child drew a line in the dust. It leads to nowhere. I step over it, careful not to disturb her world. The sun drops lower. The day thins out. Somewhere, someone is waiting for a sign. I am not that someone. The gate groans again as the wind turns. Still open, still offering nothing and asking nothing. I slip by, unnoticed, back along the path I wandered this morning. I feel no wiser for walking, no lighter, but something has settled. The night listens with you. Crickets begin their gentle argument with the dark. Lanterns blink on, one by one. Inside, behind every stone, a prayer too quiet for ears, but heard all the same. He asked for nothing and still felt full. They walked a little apart that day, not because of any trouble, just the weariness that comes from too many mornings strung together without real rest. Not much was said. The path was the color of cooled ash, soft under sandaled feet. The sun sat low, not wanting to climb any higher. Even the air seemed tired, drifting slow. One of them had an apricot. It lay in a piece of old cloth, nestled with 3 small loaves. He'd bought it with the last quiet coin in his purse, but it didn't feel like a purchase, more like a small kindness, saved from the market's noise for this hour. He didn't mention it, just held it in his palm, flesh warm from walking. There was a low wall of stone beside the path, cool in its shadow. They stopped wordless agreement and sat where moss had crept up from underneath. The wall had seen 1,000 such pauses. Dust settled around their feet. Somewhere, voices trickled from a distant courtyard. A woman singing, someone boiling water. He met the other's eyes. No need to say, "Are you hungry?" It was written in the quiet. He split the apricot with his thumb, a soft press, a gentle tear. Juice traced his hand. He wiped it on the cloth, then passed half across, open-handed. The exchange needed no words. They ate slowly, chewing, watching the hills. The bread tasted faintly of yesterday. The fruit just enough to make you remember water. Outside the city wall, a cock crowed, nothing special. Somewhere deep in the alleyways, servants gathered near a fire, warming themselves because the evening was cool. John once wrote about a courtyard like that, but here only stillness moved. Let this moment stretch, the apricot scent in the air, the two of them together, not having to talk. Even their hands, resting on their knees, knew each other's shape. The world was noisy in the background, but it didn't reach here. They both remembered the night before. Neither spoke of it. There were things that needed silence around them, like roots beneath a sleeping fig tree. Even this silence is holy. One traced lines in the dust with the heel of a sandal. Round and round. A child's gesture from long ago, done without thinking. The other smiled, nearly, mouth flickering up, then quiet again. They watched a small line of ants find a fallen crumb. Noticed how faithfully they worked, how each ant seemed to know its work without being told. The bread shared, now shared again, even smaller. Blessings shrinking but never quite vanishing. Neither of them mentioned the heaviness they carried. It was there, resting invisible across both their shoulders, but lighter for being shared. God, it seemed, walked slowly too. They let the day pass quietly, letting it do as it pleased. Let this silence linger. Let the shapes of ordinary things work quietly on your heart. Shadows shifted. Someone in the next field threw seed to pigeons. A dog barked, then lay down again, belly pressed to earth, eyes half closed. Around them, the world kept its patient rhythm. They followed along, breath for breath, like a lullaby even grown men listened for after hard weeks. From time to time, the one holding the cloth would glance at his friend. Sometimes you share your heart only by sharing fruit. The gentleness in that exchange spoke everything necessary. A hand offering, a hand receiving. Nothing more was needed. They remembered the sunlit mornings when the road had been just as long but somehow seemed easier. Or maybe the memory was softened by longing, edges blurred by hope. But this, too, was part of the story. The slower days, the smaller kindness. The wind picked up a little piece of their conversation, the one that was never spoken, carried it away harmless. They sat with what remained. Looks like rain later, one murmured. The other nodded. Should cover the bread. That was all. They watched clouds moving from the west, shadows pouring over rooftops. Time unspooling, almost silent. The city was not far, but it felt like another world. Night listens with you when you share so few words. Rest comes easier. You don't have to keep the story straight. You just are. A bit of laughter came from the direction of the wells. Someone spilled a pail. The sound, metal on stone, had its own comfort. Neither wondered whose laughter it was. They let it wash over them like warm water over calloused hands. Let every breath be quieter than the one before. Let the world become smaller, closer, simpler. They watched a man leading a donkey down a side lane, listened to the soft scuff of hooves, the low murmur of a conversation meant only for animals and God. Sometimes the most faithful prayers are never said aloud. In the fading light, the one with the cloth folded it carefully. Sets like this, two friends, one fruit evening, feel ordinary but become precious in memory. He tucked the cloth away, brushed crumbs from his fingers. Neither wanted to be the first to stand. The stone beneath them cooled their bones in a good way, reminding them to stay a little longer. Let bones settle to stone, heart settle to heart. A gate creaked somewhere behind them. Children chased a tired hen in the dust, laughing softly, sometimes falling down. All the important things, quiet, unnoticed kinds of love, kept happening, whether anyone called them miracles or not. Let your eyes get heavy. Let your limbs forget the day's weight. This moment is enough. When the first star blinked on, one of them gasped, then covered his mouth with a smile. The sky does that, startles even the ones who think they've seen every evening there is. It was getting cold. They both felt it. The apricot was gone, its stone rolled to the edge of the path, where maybe the rains would sink it, maybe a bird would carry it off. Some things you plant without expecting flowers. They stood almost at the same time, bodies stiff, stretching but quietly so as not to wake the field. "Another day," said the one who had carried the fruit. "A good one," said the other, honest, even if it was small. "Thank you." He shrugged, a motion barely more than a breath. He asked for nothing and still felt full. The path home felt longer in the dim. Lamps one by one lit behind curtained windows. Doors closed. The world went to sleep. Only the quiet steps of two friends walking together. That was miracle enough for now. Let the memory last at the edge of sleep. Even if you forget every word, let the calm remain. You don't have to understand it, some bread shared, a hand to an apricot, and the silent knowing that you're not alone. That's all it ever was. The night is gentle. You are safe. God is here, and everything is enough. The light begins to fade along the edge of the wall, just enough to remind me to tend the fire. The clay oven sits low, steady as my breathing. I nudge a few small branches under the pale coals, careful not to stir too much ash. There is a softness to this hour, the late hush of footsteps gone home, only the quiet popping of the wood and the easy creak beyond the window. The oil waits in its little jar. I like the sound it makes, slow and thick as it rests in the cup. I pour just a bit, watching gold ribbons slip along the clay. Some drips along my finger, warm, then cool. I wipe it with a piece of linen, not hurried. Hours ago, voices carried in the street, louder than crows in the sycamore. But now, the village is quieter, the crowd somewhere else, the sky tipping toward night. Nothing is needed right now. The bread will come later or not. I take comfort in the weight of the oil lamp and the even line of kindling by the wall. All day I have listened for news, or maybe for nothing at all. Some days the whole world feels like it is waiting. I pull the hem of my tunic over my knees and settle back on the packed earth, watching the smoke fold itself up and vanish, curl by curl. Let this moment stretch, like a cloth over a loaf, gentle and weightless. My work is done slowly, not because there's so much to do, but because the doing is almost prayer. Even this silence is holy. Unnoticed prayers drift with the smoke, hidden in the folds of evening. In the next room someone coughs, a reminder that I'm not alone, not forgotten. I turn the lamp in my hand. The oil is clear and pale, faintly sweet. I remember the first time I learned to pour it without spilling, a kindness shown to me on a day much like this one. There is heat in the coals and a kind of hush in the last breath of light. It is enough to tend and wait. The world has its stories and its crowds, but here I tend a flame. The night listens with you, my hands are clean. My heart is quiet. I let the day drift away, as slow as dusk itself. The day slowed before the gates, turning folds of sun across the stones. I wandered out, just past the voices and the watchful eyes. The air thinned here, where the ground sloped gentle and forgetful, and where an old fig tree had outwaited many seasons. There was no hurry, not for me. My hands still smelled faintly of flour from the morning loaf. The crumbs clung, unneeded, to my tunic, and I brushed them away, one at a time, slow enough not to wake the resting dust. Beneath the tree the earth was cool, worn smooth with sitting. Some had tucked their quiet beside these roots in years before me. Let this moment stretch. If you close your eyes, the shade moves with you. An ant made a trail near my foot, carrying more than its share. The trunk felt rough and familiar under my palm. Someone else had done this too, once, pressing fingers to bark, letting old sap mark cool skin. The memory didn't shout. It hummed, lightly, almost nothing at all. Maybe sacred things prefer silence. Maybe that's why trees remember for us. Across the field the city emptied itself in shadows. I listened for the market calls, dull now, fading. The bread sellers. The fig woman, pale apron stained a little purple. She'd sold me the best ones this morning, softer than prayer itself. I ate them slowly, even the stems. The breeze made a path from the city to my feet, bringing the faintest heat of fires and the far-off sound of water rattling in metal cups. Sometimes, if you listen too hard, you forget to rest. Let this silence be holy. The hem of my sleeve caught on the lowest branch, and I didn't mind. I sat down, knees pulled close, tunic bunched awkward in the grass. No one needed me just then. Beneath the tree, nothing became clear and still. Nothing pressed in. I drifted between thoughts and the hush of wind, the way you do when evening is generous with its boredom. I found a tiny stone, old as stories, and spun it across my knuckles. Small games you play when there's nothing urgent. Overhead, the leaves blinked their green eyelids at me, letting golden flecks scatter on my toes. Not one of them fell. Not one of them rushed decay. Trees don't hurry anything. The world will turn when it wishes. I thought once of leaving, but then the shadow deepened and the air cooled a little more. I let myself stay. The night listens with you in the quiet, a prayer drifted by, the sort you only half remember. For those who wait, for those who keep fire on the hillside, for those who watch doors and wake before dawn, I didn't try too hard to finish it. My hands found a rhythm in the grass, making shapes no one would see. Some things are meant only for the earth to witness. Across the hillside, someone was calling out a name. It faded. The sky bruised blue and plum. I watched, and there was nothing to do but watch. You don't need to know if you're heard. Let the tiredness gather like a blanket. I lay back, letting my thoughts sink toward the roots. The tree held as it always did, stone silent, softly sheltering. Maybe it remembered more than it showed. The children laughing under its arms last spring, the lost sandals, the times a mother hid tears in its darkness so no one would see. There are prayers buried here that never needed words. No one noticed, but they were heard. Let the hush linger. It would be time to go, eventually, but night arrived on slow feet. The world waited beside me, not hurried, not harsh. The dusk pressed gentle hands on my eyes, and I felt smaller, safer, closer to sleep than to sorrow. He asked for nothing and still felt full. All around, insects tuned their tiny songs. A bird, silent now, dreamed for us all. I thought of the city's edge, the worry and the work left behind until morning. Here nothing was needed, not even gratitude, just the breathing soft and the old tree's memory, wrapping every ache in loam and lullaby. Even this stillness is a kind of prayer. You can sleep here a while. I'll keep watch with the tree. The night is gentle for those who move slowly, and tomorrow is already spoken for. The sky slips from blue to gray, barely a sigh between them. You can hear the evening settling onto the village like a thin blanket, the way dust settles on the roads and on the hem of a robe. Voices fall away. All that's left is the steady scrape of sandals, the hush of someone closing a shutter, the whisper of cloth folded for tomorrow. In the corner room near the olive tree, the scribes sit close together, but each alone in their thoughts. They have been here since afternoon, hands stained in the softest shadow of ink. The air in the room is cool and low, light leaking from a single lamp, a small pool on the table, and the rest fading into gentle blur. You can only just see the edge of their parchment. Their eyes flicker, not with hurry, but with the patient remembering of lines learned by heart. One man mouths the words as he moves his reed. Another only breaths, breathing so quietly you could use the silence as a pillow. Sometimes the ink spills. Tonight it doesn't. There is just enough for their hands, just enough to cross another letter. The bowl, dark as midnight, sits untouched, steady. Let this moment stretch. You sit, not too close. You never sit too close to the ones who remember the old words. You stay by the cracked wall, folding your hands in your lap, feeling the worn wood beneath you, watching as the world grows quiet, the day's leftovers fading into the corners. One scribe straightens his back, rolls his shoulder, stretches his palm wide. The motion is slow, careful, almost nothing. There is a long pause before the reed touches the parchment again, like he's asking permission from the night. The others barely notice. A soft breeze presses at the shutters. The lamp wavers. Even this silence is holy. Outside, someone shakes out a rug, dust rising and vanishing like thoughts. Farther, in a deeper courtyard, you see shapes gathered around a small fire. They hold their hands over the flames, fingers spearing light. A rooster wakes dreamlike beyond the walls. Voices reach you soft, uncertain, not meant for remembering. Just now, you picture the story that drifts from old memory. Simon Peter warming his hands, unsure, shadows moving over him and over all the restless world. Still, nothing happens here but waiting. The ink dries. The words appear, line after line, lifting from memory into the near dark. No one hurries. The sun has already given up its duties. Someone moves a jar, ceramic against wood, a patient sound. A sandal pressed heel first into dust marks the end of one small journey. No one sees. You let your gaze drift from the flicker of lamp to the hand. Old hands, steady hands, hands with small scars from kitchen work or carrying baskets. These are not soft men. One lifts a cup of water, sips, lets the cup rest again without a word. You feel your own thirst, but It is a quiet hunger, easily forgotten in this stillness. A leaf presses against the window, trembling. The night listens with you, the room is filled with breathing. Low, even breaths, wax melting in the lamp. The faint, far-off trudging of a donkey on uneven stones. One scribe nods. Another frowns, counting syllables under his tongue. Yet no cross words pass between them. Each is alone with the memory of God's story. Each is tethered by plain duty, and still, they make something beautiful, quiet as rain on fields you cannot see. The ink never spills, though no one guards it. That is the only miracle. But even that feels smaller than the rhythm of the evening, a gentle season after a day of noise. The parchment stacks grow, edged in shadows, pressed at the corners by a smooth stone. Occasionally, someone lifts the stone, counts the sheets, tucks a thumb beneath the top paper to check the work. You watch, slow and safe. None of it is meant to last forever. The ink will fade in sun. The parchment will yellow at its edges. Even memory is nothing but old rope holding the day to the night. Still here it is enough. Let your eyes close if they must. Let this hour tide you over. The scribes do not speak as they put away their tools. 3 reeds lined, the ink bowl capped. One by one, papers stacked, pressed, folded in the darkness. They dust their hands, stretch. One catches your eye, smiles without sound, and you feel seen, but only as much as a housefly might be noticed in an open window. It is enough. You move to stand, legs heavy, as the others gather their cloaks and slip outside, a slow procession into the cool courtyard. The fire there is low now, voices fewer. Shadows cross over stone. One scribe stands beneath a fig tree, not because it's special, but because it's there. He eats the fruit, rough hands peeling the skin away, juice shining at the edge of his mouth. He wipes it away with the back of his sleeve, looks up and sees nothing that startles him. Your feet press the dirt, step by step. No one rushes toward the next thing. There is nothing urgent to be done. Across the stones, across the slow, unfolding dark, even the animals are at rest. You hear the turn of a distant gate as it closes for the night, feel the heavy hush of a world paused. This moment has no meaning, except that you remember it. This hour stretches, tender, unfinished. The words written here will outlast you and also disappear. You watch the lamp go out. You stand outside yourself a little more. And you are not the center, but you are here, full and nothing more. Just like breath beside breath, the story wanders into another evening. No edges, no signposts, only the blessing of another ordinary hour, quiet, unspilled, letting you drift with it. Late dusk settles along the quiet lanes. The day thinning, sky pale, half swallowed by the hills. My sandals brush pebbles as I walk a little farther, toward the part of town where the dust seems softer and the air presses less. Maybe someone will be at the well, lingering past supper. Maybe not. It doesn't matter. The light is folding itself away. Not long ago, this lane was louder. I remember the tangled sound, voices scrambling just beyond the courtyard, flames stumbling in a barrel so the men's faces moved in wavy gold and gray. I didn't pause to watch. This road remembers things, even when I forget their edges. Maybe that's what happens here. Time catches its breath where people once hurried, but now only quiet walks remain. Tonight, the stones give back warmth from their slow work in the sun. My hand drags along a wall, rough and cool. I pick at a chip of plaster. There's a comfort in these small things, in walking slowly on purpose, with nothing asked of me except to keep going. Someone sweeping beside a doorway, the bristle sounds steady as a tired heart. I nod as I pass. She says nothing, but I feel less alone. Above us, linen drips from a line, the day's last water darkening the stone below. Every little thing finds a place to settle as night comes down. Let this moment stretch until every lamp is lit and forgotten, one by one. Even this silence is holy. Past a shuttered bakery, I remember the yeast smell of bread, how it always clings to air long after the baskets are emptied. A stray cat blinks at me from behind a jug, her breathing slow and light as the dust near her paws. People speak with less hurry after sundown. Their voices gather in corners, ripple out in soft question and answer, like prayers spilled and left to dry. There are places, I think, that don't change, no matter what passes through. Somewhere in the corner of a courtyard, an old bench does its work, holding weight, listening for stories that don't intend to be told. I sit and let my eyes lose focus. Some child is somewhere, wrapping dates in a cloth. The world goes on, sturdy and unremarkable. The night listens with you, and nothing is rushed. No one notices when my eyes close for a moment, lulled by the hush that comes from familiar things, the dip of an alley, the echo of footsteps I cannot name. He asked for nothing, and still felt full. John said there was a place where a fire burned and the servants gathered to keep warm. I never knew them closely, but I heard how Peter was there with them. Stories drift like smoke, you catch a little, then the wind changes. I think of the courtyard stones holding a memory, the way bread holds flame, then cools and waits. You don't have to remember everything. It's enough to keep walking. In dusk like this, I don't look for miracles. I look for where my shadow changes, where someone once stood a little longer. Nothing matters here, and yet everything, the borrowed warmth of a stone, the hush of a broom, the echo of a voice behind a closed shutter. These are the gifts for those who walked steps from the edge, just close enough to listen, not close enough for the fire. Let the street grow dim. Let the day dissolve. Tomorrow someone will walk here and feel something soft follow them, even if they don't know why. The coals were already turning pale, a gentle orange under a film of gray. I remember sitting here, not for any great reason, just because it was warmer than standing alone in the yard. Somewhere overhead was a nighttime cloud, stretching and smoothing across the sky, closing itself around the edges of the moon. People had gathered near the gateway, voices kept quiet but nodding up with tension. I didn't know all of them. I didn't need to. The bench creaked when I shifted my weight, but no one minded the sound. All our movements were slow, pausing again and again. My hands rested in my lap for a long while, feeling the air's emptiness, fiddling with a stray thread on my sleeve. The thread spun loose between my fingers, ordinary as worrying a pebble in one's shoe. Someone passed a bundle of sticks, setting a few onto the coals. I listened as they popped, sent a spiral of smoke into the cold. It didn't fill the air, not truly. I watched a moth spin near the fire's edge, wings pale as milk. Farther out, through the slats of the courtyard, a voice raised, not angry, just tired. Let this moment stretch, my feet were cold. So I pulled them closer, sighing, toes curled near the warmth. On the other side, an older man poked the embers, stirring them with small, unhurried jabs. I could hear his breath sometimes, slower than his words. Now and then someone asked, "Have you heard anything?" No one answered right away. Sometimes they didn't at all. Mostly we just sat passing glances. The hands, the shoes, the way someone would brush soot from his sleeve and nothing else. The fire wasn't for celebration tonight, just for holding some of the chill back. Even this silence is holy. You could hear water moving in some jar left nearby, kept for rinsing the night's last dishes. Someone had spilled a bit on the paving stones. The dark patch shone in the light, making the world feel polished even here. For a while I stared at it, at the ordinary shine of water, breathing slow, letting the world be simple. A rooster made a sound far off, not meant for us, but it made me think of morning, and how mornings in this city never seem rushed. So much happens quietly, behind thin doors, below open windows, a loaf broken, a prayer half-mouthed. Someone sleeps, someone wakes. No one is at the center, not even the center itself. The night listens with you, my thumb pressed tiny circles into the rough clay edge of a bowl set beside me. Someone else's supper, half forgotten. Lentils cooling. I thought of my mother's kitchen and how she would sift and rinse the beans, watching the water cloud and clear. There isn't much more peaceful than a meal taken with no rush, no stories. Only eating, chewing, a hand wiping the table clean. I closed my eyes for a bit, opening them when another voice lifted. We could hear laughter from the guards further down, but it never felt close. The sound belonged to someone else's night, not ours. No one noticed the prayer, but it was heard. A young man warmed his palms over the coals, his knuckles lined with ash. He looked uneasy, tried pressing his fingers together, then letting them go. I watched him for a while, admiring nothing but the shape of hands. Hands can work or they can wait. Tonight mostly they waited. Someone set a pot closer to the heat. I caught the faint aroma of onions, sharp and homey. My stomach said it was hungry, but my heart didn't much care. The ache of waiting had replaced all the day's lighter hungers. I tried not to wonder what came next. Instead, I watched how the light of the fire made a pattern on the hem of my robe, the orange flicker softening to gray as it met the shadows near my knees. Let this quiet hold you a while sometimes. I shifted my feet, pressed my heel back into the dirt just to feel it, cool and loose. I counted the grit caught in my sandal. So much of our days is waiting like this, not for miracles but for minutes to pass. Night dissolves us into ourselves. No one asks for a lesson. Sometimes the world means nothing, and that is its meaning. The air moved with a shiver. A small wind ruffled the bends of my hair. Someone on the far side of the fire let his head droop, chin touching his chest, warmed only by the conversation happening somewhere off to the side. Let your eyes close if they wish. The logs were mostly gone, bone white and silent except for a few cracks of heat shifting inside. I dragged my fingertip through the ash on the bench, making simple, thoughtless shapes. Over the wall, a dog barked, then gave up. Someone coughed. Someone yawned. We all let the silence do most of the talking. There was a gate not far behind us. Light slipped under it, drawing a line no one crossed. I thought about doors open to some, closed to others. Some nights you wish you felt needed, but tonight it was a gift to sit unnoticed, to be just another shape in the glow, quiet, slow, and unnecessary. Even boredom is sacred when you look for God in it. A young woman poked at her sandal, shaking a pebble from inside. She winced, then laughed soft, barely there. I smiled at her but didn't say anything. Sometimes it is enough to let someone's comfort return quietly. Nothing in me wanted to chase the story happening beyond the wall. The stars, one by one, appeared opening wide in the dark, blinking above the chimney smoke. I tried counting them, lost count, tried again, but lost count on purpose the second time. There's a blessing in letting things be unfinished. Let the pace slow even more. Wind pressed through my loose sleeve. The edge of it caressed my wrist, made goosebumps rise. I tucked my arms tighter, drawing the night around me. No one asked if I was cold. Still, I felt cared for, the way fire gives heat even if it doesn't know your name. The way a neighbor will sit beside you and say nothing, and yet your burdens rest. He asked for nothing and still felt full. From the direction of the high gate, a voice called out, sharp, official. Then quickly it fell silent again. My head tipped forward, chin heavy, eyes dipping lower, patient. There was nothing left to do. Even the fire was settling into its bed. I thought of my own bed, quiet, unrumpled. I imagined the cool sheets, the weight of my old blanket. For now I waited here, letting the peace soak in. Sometimes the holiest place is not in the story at all, but beside it, half seen, well held. Let yourself drift. All night the fire faded. Orange became gray, gray became blue as morning threatened at the edge of the sky. The voices cleared. I brushed ash from my knees, feeling the world return, slowly, softly. It would be time to rise soon. Not just yet. Just for now, I let the quiet linger, made room for God if he wished to slip by, unnoticed, unhurried. In this quiet, no one is alone, not really. Night passes, a little holier for being so uneventful. The story goes on, but you do not need to follow. Not tonight. Rest. Just rest a little longer. Even in the boredom, grace remains. It's quiet now. The courtyard is nearly empty. I fold a wool blanket and set it near the worn stones. The night smells like firewood and bread left cooling on a shelf. My hands remember the work, just linen upon linen, brushed smoothly corner to corner, never hurried. Somewhere a rooster calls again, softer than before. The gate is closed. Lanterns flicker. Shadows hold their own stories on the walls. I listen to the hush, the small sounds hidden inside the big ones. My sandals rest beside the door. I feel my toes press lightly against the floor, cold and good after a long day walking. Let this moment stretch. I breathe in, slow and low. I breathe out, slower still. Even the sheep are quiet, their hearts heavy with sleep. I pour the last water for the night, watch it settle in the basin. There's a shape to silence, a weight. I let it hold me. The moon has moved higher, its light paints pale stripes across the ground. I pause beneath it just a moment, not to wonder or to wish, only to